in 1 Corinthians 13, I know you know this scripture. It says, "For now we see through a glass darkly, but then, when we get there, face to face. Now, I know in part." We read the Bible and we know something about that land. "But then shall I know, even as also I am known." I was thinking about, those of us who have read the scriptures for years. Mm-hmm. If John came up and shook hands with you, and he said, "Well, I'm John, the apostle," you would immediately think things about John. What are some of the things you would think about? Well, he's no stranger. I've known him.
Right. The first thing that comes in my mind is he let us know that God so loved the world. He's the one that told us this. And there's just so many things in the book of John that we could talk about and just reminisce.
And I was thinking too, I would probably say, well, I know you wrote those 5 books, but that book of Revelation, I've spent a lot of time on that. Of course, now we're on this side of it, but I'd love just to sit sometime and listen.
Oh my!
Yeah. Okay, then somebody walks up and somebody says, "This is Esther, and this is Ruth that is with her."
Oh, Ruth with Esther. Well, there's 2 stories in one right there. My mind went to Esther first because you mentioned it. I wonder, I'd like to ask her, how did you feel when you went into the king, knowing that he might not save your life? And Ruth, she could tell me a lot of stories about her trip to this other country, living in a strange land, raising her family in a strange land, then losing everything. But in the end, she could really, and her grandbaby, maybe she'd like to brag about her grandbaby like some of us do with ours.
And that out of her came King David and Jesus, right? Yes. I was just thinking that, if somebody says something to us like a mantle, we understand what that is. I was reading in here where it was talking, God was talking about his destruction to a place, and he said, "You'll plant strange slips." And I thought, well, I know what that is, a slip. It's a plant, a small plant. Mm-hmm. You'll plant ones that have come from strange places. The language and the people of this book.
It's different, but if you read it enough, you know what they're talking about.
You know it from cover to cover.
Yes.
And there's people in here. There's hundreds of people.
Yes.
That are in here that once we meet them, I remember one time being in Florida, and someone said they wanted to introduce me to Dr. David Case. And I thought, oh, I know who Dr. Case is. He's the one that writes all those books and does all that teaching on sanctification. I had read some of his books. And when I met him, I just thought it'll all be about him, because who am I? You know what I'm saying? And he was such a grand gentleman of sanctification and of the word. And when he came up and met me, he just automatically said, "Oh, I know who you are. I get all these kids from that church down there, and they know the Bible." And it'll be like that when we meet people from this book.
That's exciting, isn't it, to think about it? It's really exciting. And then you just want to go through and just say, "Oh, I know what I can say about them. I know what I could say to them."
And think about the conversations.
I love it.
So hopefully that'll give you a reason, if you want to go to heaven, get to know these people so you'll know something about them when you're introduced to them.